The topic for this video is the electron transport chain. Please pause the video, read the passage, and create a sketch including all of the important information. Alright, now that you've created your drawing, I will walk you through an example. The passage states that electron transport is based upon a series of 4 transmembrane proteins. So let's start by drawing our cell membrane that the proteins will span. Then we can get into the details of these proteins. Complex 1 is transmembrane. Complex 2 is peripheral. Complex 3 is transmembrane as well, and so is complex 4. The passage also mentions 2 other proteins, coenzyme Q above complex 2 and complex C between complexes 3 and 4. Now that our proteins are drawn, we can begin to outline the electron transport chain. The passage says complex 1 binds 4 hydrogen ions from the matrix, but before we show the hydrogen ions, let's label the matrix here. Now we can read forward and see that there are 4 tunnels with hydrogen ions bound partway through, and draw that. Now, 2 electrons can bind, so we'll represent those in circles and draw an arrow to show NADH donating those electrons and becoming NAD+ and losing a hydrogen ion. The negative charges of the electrons change the shape of complex 1 and block the tunnels to the matrix while opening them to the inner membrane space. Even though we didn't know the tunnels were blocked, it's an easy thing to add. We can close the tunnels below the hydrogen ions and use diagonal lines to show the open tunnels to the intermembrane space. We'll use red arrows to show the hydrogen ions leaving the tunnel and entering the membrane space. Now the electrons are no longer wanted by complex 1, and they travel to coenzyme Q. The passage then moves on to complex 2, where we learn that 2 more electrons are collected from FADH2 and becoming FAD and losing 2 hydrogen ions. We can represent this the same way we did earlier with an arrow. Coenzyme Q then carries electrons from complex 1 and 2, so we can show that with 2 red arrows, and then a final arrow taking those electrons from coenzyme Q to complex 3. The passage then states that complex 3 functions similarly to complex 1, but we don't need to show all of those details again. We can simplify by drawing the 4 tunnels and using an arrow to represent the 4 hydrogen ions pumped out. Cytochrome C then takes the electrons from complex 3, so we'll use another arrow and move these electrons to complex 3. Then those electrons are moved to complex 4. Complex 4 only moves 2 hydrogen ions across the membrane, so we will draw only 2 tunnels and add an arrow to show those 2 hydrogen ions. The passage concludes with the creation of water using the electrons we have gathered through the electron transport chain. We show that with half O2, because oxygen is never present alone, and 2 hydrogen atoms combined with 2 electrons to create H2O. Our drawing is now complete, but remember, your drawing does not have to look exactly like mine. As long as you include the important components from the passage and your drawing makes sense to you, you have made a good sketch. Also keep in mind that your drawing does not have to use color like mine did. You can have one color for your entire sketch. For this passage, you should have the following components in your sketch to be considered a good sketch. Complexes 1, 2, 3, 4, Q, and C in their appropriate positions in the cell membrane. The matrix clearly labeled. 4 hydrogen ion tunnels with hydrogen ions bound, closed to the matrix, and open to the intermembrane space for complex 1. NADH becoming NAD plus a hydrogen ion and leaving 2 electrons attached to complex 1. FADH2 becoming FAD and 2 hydrogen ions, and leaving 2 electrons attached to complex 2. Coenzyme Q chartering electrons from complexes 1 and 2 to complex 3. Complex 3 with 4 hydrogen tunnels and pumping 4 hydrogen ions to the intermembrane space. Electrons transported from complex 3 to complex C to complex 4. Complex 4 with 2 hydrogen ion tunnels and pumping 2 hydrogen ions to the intermembrane space. And finally, half O2 plus 2 hydrogen ions, creating water with the addition of the 2 electrons from complex 4. Practice creating sketches from a passage on your own or with our other videos to further develop your skills.